Yeah, 1 second.
Oh, whoops.
We're getting it going.
Usually drag out the judges gavel, but we got crowd tonight. Joint gavel. It's going, okay. Right, it is 7 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to participate virtually are included in the City Council calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Vaughn. Here. Hayden Champosi.
Here.
Camosa.
Here.
Kring.
Here.
Schmid.
Here.
Josie.
Here.
Carpenter Davis.
Here.
All right, you're going to be hearing a lot from me because we have several special presentations this evening. The first is a proclamation recognizing secure firearm storage as a public health priority and preventing suicide and unintentional shootings. In conjunction with our second proclamation, which tonight is to recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day on the first Friday in June. National Gun Violence Awareness Day, also known as Wear Orange, to honor and remember all victims and survivors of gun violence and to declare that we must do more to reduce gun violence. Communities across the nation, including Mission, are working to end senseless gun violence. Protecting public safety in the community is local government's highest responsibility, and Mission is proud to join the campaign by encouraging citizens to wear orange on the first Friday in June to help raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. We renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and to encourage responsible gun ownership in order to keep our children safe. Tonight, we are joined by Grandparents for Gun Safety and by Katie Mangelsdorf from Moms Demand Action to accept these proclamations. Katie, would you like to make any remarks?
Hello, thank you. My name is Katie Mangelsdorf. I'm a Lenexa resident and Councilmember Kring is my kiddo's grandmother. Thank you, Mayor Flora and the council members. I'm happy to be here once again to accept the proclamation on behalf of Moms Demand Action. Wear Orange is a time for everyone in our community to come together to show our collective power in addressing gun violence. When high school student Hadia Pendleton was shot and killed in 2013, her friends turned their grief into action and wore orange to raise awareness about gun violence prevention. This June marks the 12th year we'll be coming together to wear orange and take action. On June 5th, 6th, and 7th, we'll honor all lives taken and injured by gun violence as part of National Gun Violence Awareness Day, commemorated every year on the first Friday in June. Then throughout the weekend, we'll continue to turn Johnson County orange as we bring together members of our community to show our solidarity as we work to prevent gun violence. Join us on Saturday, June 6th at 9 a.m. for our KC Metro Wear Orange event at Alvin Brooks Justice Center on the Rockhurst University campus at 5401 Troost Avenue in Kansas City, Missouri. All are welcome at this event to honor survivors and raise awareness about the work of gun violence prevention in our community. And we're counting on you to be with us in Johnson County. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone's here for the Cedar story? Should firearms great. Anybody else want to be in the photo?
We got a whole lot.
Two. Okay, two. Yeah, right. Okay, we'll grab long screw and we'll grab the next screw.
Okay, so hold on, we're fine. We're doing Jan. Jan. Oh, you're doing both? We're doing. Yes. Oh, no, we'll do two.
Two, okay. All right, well, look at y'all right here. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Stop.
Thank you for the Boy Scouts.
Oh, I'll do it. I'll do it too.
That's fine. We do it for our social media, so look at one new page. One, two, three. Subject. Thank you. Okay, our next presentation tonight is a proclamation which designated May 10th to May 16th, 2026 as National Police Week. Each May, our nation salutes the men and women who put their lives on the line every day to maintain public safety. On Peace Officers Memorial Day and during Police Week, we not only mourn the heroes taken from us because they chose to serve, all who have dedicated their lives to this important work. Our law enforcement officers have tough jobs, regularly working in dangerous and difficult, highly tense situations, often facing challenges deeply rooted in systemic problems and broader social issues. Mission is committed to ensuring our dedicated police officers receive the support and recognition that they have earned. Chief Madden, will you please come forward to accept the proclamation and pass along the council's thanks and appreciation for the work of the men and women of our police department?
Or you can snipe my group out.
Yeah, let's see if we can get everyone in this spot. 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is a proclamation recognizing May as Building Safety Month in the City of Mission. Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role the largely unknown guardians of public safety within our communities are local code officials. These are the people who assure us of safe, efficient, and livable buildings that are essential to the health and economic vitality of Mission. Mission is pleased to observe Building Safety Month, asking our residents to consider the commitment to improve building safety and economic investments at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting life and property. Mr. Scott, would you please come forward to accept this proclamation?
That does not look like a smile.
I'm with you, Brian. This Wednesday has been very Monday-y. Our next proclamation recognized Saturday, May 16th as Kids to Parks Day. This is a day that empowers families to embrace what they can do outdoor at America's parks, public lands, and waters, while encouraging kids to lead a more active lifestyle. In honor of Kids to Parks Day, our Parks and Recreation Department hosted their annual Kids to Parks Day event on Saturday, May 2nd at the Powell Community Center. Our Parks and Recreation staff work hard throughout the year to promote the benefits and rewards of an active lifestyle. Mr. Almany, will you please accept this proclamation on behalf of your staff? All right. Our final proclamation of the night proclaims May 17th to 23rd as National Public Works Week. Public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital to creating sustainable and resilient communities and to the high quality of life and well-being of our Mission residents. These dedicated professionals are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting important infrastructure, facilities essential for our community.
To celebrate Public Works Week, Mission Public Works will host an open house event on Tuesday, June 9th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Public Works facility and has invited the public to tour their facilities, learn more about the equipment they use, and meet the team. Mr. Morton, will you please accept the proclamation for your department and pass along our appreciation to the dedication and commitment of your staff? Yes. Yes.
There is a familiar face sitting on the back row of the council chambers who doesn't have necessarily a special presentation, but would like to make a quick comment before we move into the rest of the meeting. So if you entertain that, I would like to invite Mike Scanlon, Mission's former city administrator,
That would be great.
up to the podium.
Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a minute. And what I wanted to do is thank the council and Penn for the great concert at Mohawk Park this Sunday.
Excellent.
And if I remember right, I think they said we thought there would be 200 people here, but there were 500
It's
people.
amazing.
So that park and the fact that you activated in a different way by inviting the Kansas City Symphony to participate made it a wonderful event. Now, my grandsons, I think, spent more time climbing, but it was fun. It was fun for all ages. So thank you so much for doing that.
Excellent. That's actually been on my list for a long time and I had a conflict and missed it. So Penn, you got to make it happen again next year. Thank you. All right, we do have one public hearing this evening, which is in relation to the adoption of a tax increment financing redevelopment project plan for Rock Creek Redevelopment District number 3C. I will now officially open the public hearing. Ms. Smith, will you please begin your presentation?
Yes, Mayor, I would just like to kick off. I'm going to turn this over very quickly to the project's developer, Mr. Banks Floodman with Sunflower Development. And I've got three of us who will tag team a presentation, Mr. Floodman, Mr. Bruce Kimmel with Ellers, the city's municipal advisor, and then myself. You have a copy of the PowerPoint. Justin will project it on the screen. You also have a copy at your place. If anyone in the audience would like a copy, we have some extras here as well. So as you know, we'll make our presentation. There'll be the opportunity for any public comment related to this request. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Floodman to get us started.
Hi, nice to see everybody again. Banks Floodman Sunflower Development Group. Excited to be a part of this project. As you can see here, what this consists of, and I know we've talked about this a few different times, but is the combination of quite a few parcels, formerly Lanes Phase 2, which is the former parking lot that is just to the south of the Waltz Tetrick building that was underutilized. We, after further analysis and timing and being able to finally reach the Wendy's folks, which was not an easy task, we decided to make it potentially a bigger development to activate Martway. And we've come to the realization that Martway has fantastic upside and more potential and can help hopefully do things in a very positive direction to Mission Mart as well. You know, Mission Mart is, I think, the largest shopping center in Mission, and it's we've been very fortunate. We've got a lot of interest, but that south side has been very, very difficult to get people excited about foot traffic, traffic counts, all the variables that a retailer looks for to be successful. Unfortunately, just haven't presented itself yet on that south side. And after kind of coming to a conclusion, this is a great site for people to live. We have a lot of excited residents in the lanes that that expanding that vision to what we feel hopefully matches what the city of Mission feels is a development that they can be proud of, while also the side benefits is activating that south side of Mission Mart and just Martway as a whole. We decided to make it bigger and better and incorporate some components, as I know Laura and Bruce will jump into here in a little bit, that will benefit city infrastructure costs, whether it's a retaining wall, other infrastructure costs, activating the Rock Creek Trail, all components that we're excited about that create that walkability, which is a phrase that developers throw out there a lot. But in a lot of cases, it's not as accurate as it is here. Walkability, safety, a lot of the things that fortunately Mission has, we feel like this can contribute to that and bring people that want to call Mission home into the area to benefit a lot of the mom and pops and the retailers that have decided to place their businesses here. Overall, I know we'll go through some pretty pictures that I think you all have seen here shortly, but project cost, anticipating it being around 52 million. Project costs are, unfortunately, with some tariffs and things happening overseas, they're not stabilizing it like they did for about a year and a half. They're going up, and so we do anticipate that budget being at 52 million. Knock on wood. And we do anticipate, we've engaged with the GC. We have actually the same partners as we have on the lanes that would be involved from a financial perspective on Core as well, which again, I think reinforces their belief in the area as well. And so it's hard to argue that when you take them to the Peanut on a Thursday at any point in time and there's not a spot to park or a seat to sit in. Probably go to the, next to the, I think this is a critical component to it. You'll see this in the pictures as well. But it's, as you all know, it's a very long, narrow track. Not easy to develop on. You've got obviously Martway, but you've got the Rock Creek Trail behind. And so what you'll see is we've tried to set back the development kind of off and on as you go down Martway, just so it's not one long straight building that is boring and doesn't fit and doesn't look like it should. We've also got a 5-level parking garage that'll have roughly 241 spaces. We have committed to working with the city on the screening of that parking garage, which I know Laura will go into, but it would be a perforated metal. But I think what we want to work with the city on is what is the design? What's the look? How's that design on that facade incorporate with what the city feels is a good representation of the area? And so that's a commitment we've made and we will absolutely stick to. But that is the overview. I know you've heard me talk a couple times, but I'm happy to make any additional comments or if needed.
You want to just quickly run through the pictures?
Yeah, I can do it. I'd love to run through the pictures again. This is the fun part. So this is kind of the central corridor of Core. As you can see here, bottom level is going to be where you walk into the main lobby area. On your left, you'll have kind of a coffee bar set up. On your right, you're going to have leasing. And then as you go up, you see the glass there. Those are units. Those will be, I'm sure, highly desirable units, but those are going to be very nice units. And then that top floor is one of our few kind of common areas for the residents to enjoy, golf simulators, Super Bowl parties, all the fun things that hopefully everybody can enjoy together. But the big thing is that we didn't have on the lanes is we really wanted to get kind of a elevated, higher up, kind of rooftop terrace feel, just that I think brings a kind of an elevated vibe to the project. That'll kind of overlook obviously to the north, but I think it will just do a good job of, again, just showing and making people feel that Martway is always activated, because hopefully somebody's always on that area, hanging out with friends and family. That again, further excites all the uses around there, not just Mission Mart, but the other uses in very close proximity that hopefully allow for future redevelopment. That's again, just the same shot, just kind of straight on. You can see a little bit of the setbacks here, but there's I think a better picture coming up. I'll talk through that a little bit more. And that's the overall final vision for at least this block. You know, this is me being on one side, but it looks better than a bowling alley that hasn't been used in years and a Wendy's that is vacant. So I'm, you know, my wife, we had lunch today at Campesinos. She's now convincing me that she wants to come here more and more, which is a good thing, and obviously reinforcing everything that we're doing in the area. But you can see here the setbacks, the lanes, you know, is relatively flat, has a little bit of kind of, you know, meandering components to the trail. And then we want to continue that down to Encore. But the garage is in the middle of it, and that's really just to break up kind of the two assets. Another component of that was we wanted the parking garage, which obviously will replace the transit site, to be as in close proximity to the transit site as possible. And it's covered, and obviously on the first level, that parking garage. So we wanted to make sure we check those those boxes to ensure that that transit was used, and it had, you know, hopefully it drives even more use because the proximity is closer and people know that they've got, you know, covered and secure parking. That's just one option. So if you like it, great. If you don't like it, that's okay. But this is one option of just kind of things we're throwing out there as far as what this screening might end up looking at like. Again, it does a good job of breaking things up. And I think it's, you know, as a visitor, whether you're pulling in or leaving the transit side on the bus or in the office buildings next door or visiting Mission Mart, I think there's a cool statement opportunity to have here that get people excited and I think, you know, make Mission unique and get people talking, for lack of a better term. We can go to the next. That's just another pic. That's another just kind of facade kind of look that we've at least explored right now. I've never thought I'd do so much research on parking garage screening, but I have. And a lot of them don't get as creative as you could, but we think there's a real cool opportunity to do some pretty neat screening on that. That's the main lobby. So as you walk in, that's what you'll see. Again, to your left will be kind of the coffee bar, study nook, open, a little more of an open area actually. And then to your right will be the leasing office. That's that coffee bar I was talking about. That just a nice area for people to congregate before they go to work. We always try to activate this sort of area close to the entrance, just because when people come in to potentially lease a unit, we want for them to see some sort of activity and go and visualize themselves. Hey, I could see myself sitting there before walking across the street or going to the office. And so that's the objective of this. That's why there's the glass. There's a lot of storefront in this building, both in the fitness side, up top, and obviously as you kind of meander through the building. This is the top level, another kind of open common area for people to utilize. You can see kind of a glimpse out there to the overall deck that people hopefully will enjoy, but it's a very large deck and I think create some really nice opportunities for us to allow the residents to enjoy themselves. That's just another kind of shot and view of that area. The two big screens on the right side, that's going to tweak a little bit because that's going to be where the golf simulator and kind of open area. They're not just golf simulators, by the way, anymore. They're everything. So whether you like baseball, football, basketball, softball, doesn't matter. You can kind of do it all, and then they can also function as a kind of a large screen for major events. So Royals in the playoffs, you know, that would be an opportunity, but overall very large area. centrally located, easy to access. And we think it'll separate us from a lot of the competition. Fitness is a big deal for residents. Fitness and dog parks are probably the two most desirable components of a project. I think in many of the projects we've done, we have more dogs in some cases than actual residents, which you have to adapt. And we tried to do that on the lanes, and we're going to obviously do that here. And with the walkability, with the dog park, we think we've checked those boxes. And then you sprinkle in the fitness component. This is kind of a glimpse of what the yoga, Pilates room may look like. But high-end finishes, very comfortable, overlooking glass. Well, this would be on the first level on the back. And then it would kind of look over out into the Rock Creek trail, kind of the Rock Creek itself on the south side of the building. That's all the pretty pictures we have so far.
Let's see. All right.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. Bruce Kimmel with others. I have to apologize. You have a whole different level of allergens in the air down here compared to where Minnesota is currently at. So I might be clearing my throat a little bit, but please bear with me, and hopefully I won't have any coughing fits up here. But it's a pleasure to be with you in person, always is. And I just want to hit a few key points from our analysis of the Encore financials and the TIF request. These were largely covered in the memo that I know was part of your council packet. On the first slide, I don't need to go through a whole lot of this because it was already covered during Mr. Floodman's discussion. I would note maybe the bullets on the bottom part of the screen, the environmental sustainability, which of course is a city priority, building and maintaining the building, which is also crucial to LEED Silver standards, purchasing the city-owned parcel that's necessary for the development for $250,000, and completion on those Rock Creek area improvements that Ms. Smith discussed at the May committee meeting. Going on to the next slide, in terms of TIF allocations, I know these numbers can they even make my eyes swim a little bit, but I did want to just recap them for you here. The developer had initially requested a higher level of TIF allocations to cover TIF eligible expenses up to $10.3 million. You can see those percentages at 95, 90, 85, and 80% for 5-year increments over 20 years. And so, of course, the city would be receiving 5, 10, 15, and 20% over that same time period, up to, of course, that $10.3 million cap. If that cap was reached earlier, then, of course, the TIF would stop at that time. And in the initial proposal, it contemplated that the TIF clock would start right away, essentially with this assessment year of 2026 for fiscal 27. After looking at pros and cons and different financial scenarios, the city team counter-proposed, and this is what we're recommending for council approval here this month and next. Lower percentages, you can see 90%, 85, 75, and 70, and naturally 10%, 15%, 25, and 30% to the city. Also with the TIF clock starting 2 years later in assess 28, pay 29, that will more appropriately match up with the development timeline. The project won't be completely done as of January 1 of 2028, but it'll be well on its way. The developer expects to complete the project in the spring or summer of 28, and in the development agreement would have an obligation to complete it by the end of 2028. Any questions about those allocations? And of course, we can come back as well. Okay, then moving on to pro review. We did do a deep dive into the developer's pro forma and budget for this project. As was noted earlier, the development team is looking at a total development cost of about $52 million. And that funding breakdown would be about 35% from equity, so about $18 million, and the remainder coming from bank financing. And with the recommended TIF allocation and all the other components that have been discussed, our analysis shows that the developer has an opportunity with this totality of deal terms to achieve approximately a 6% return on their equity investment. As Mr. Floodman noted, and certainly as we're seeing with other projects here in the Midwest, I think there's more risk or odds, if you will, of some of his costs going up than going down. Also, on the operating side, if we continue to see inflation in terms of energy costs and other factors, there could be pressure on the operating performance as well that might not be able to be recouped completely with rents from the project. So if anything, I think that I would say, we think the projections are reasonable and that 6% is an achievable target, but it could be more likely that it might be a little bit less than that than more than that, given the way the world is going and the nature of these projects. Going on to the next page, you saw this in your council packet as well, but this is the TIF projection that we have for the 20-year term and with the TIF allocations that are being recommended for council consideration. You can see the PAYGO allocations about 2/3 of the way to the right. Again, 90%, 85, 75, and 70. And so given the calculations and with the project essentially achieving full valuation in assess 29 for pay 30, you can see that value of 4.75 million. We show the developers' allocations and the city's allocations at approximately $10.3 million and $2.9 million. This is only of the TIF increment or the tax increment. It doesn't include the base taxes that are going to the city, county, school district, et cetera. And that, at least the city's portion, is shown on the next page. I collapsed some of the columns so we could actually get this on one slide. And really the only thing new here is the column on the right-hand side. If you consider the city's 22 mills, which, as you know, is the city's current property tax rate, and if you apply that to the base value, which you can see kind of on the left-hand side there of 343,000, again, these are assessed values, not appraised values, right? If you multiply that by 22 mills, divide by 1,000, it's about $7,500 per year. Of course, the city's mill rate is not always going to stay at 22 mills, of course. So that number will probably escalate to some extent. But it is striking that, the city's capture of 2.9 million of TIF, although it does need to be used for TIF eligible public infrastructure costs, is quite a bit higher than the roughly 150,000 that we're estimating in general property taxes from the existing base value. Any questions about that before I show you one last screen, which is probably going to be impossible to read, but we can describe it verbally. Oh, they have a copy. Great. Oh, it looks equally small. Yeah. All right. Well, this was a little Bruce magic here. We've got on the left-hand side the proposed revised lanes cash flow, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later in tonight's agenda. With the proposed changes to the PAYGO allocations, we've discussed this several times and we'll discuss it again here in a few minutes. And you can see, so that's the left-hand side of the page with the developers portion and the city's portion. And then they're offset, of course, because we've already had a number of years, right, of the lanes. We'll continue to have a few more years before Encore comes online. And then the blue bar is really where they match up. And that's in assess 28 for pay 29. And that's when the 20 years for Encore would begin with the developer's share, the city's share. And then on the right-hand side, I've taken the two city columns and combined those. And you can see that with this, obviously, imperfect crystal ball, but with this projection nonetheless, you're looking at about $5.5 million of TIF that would be coming to the city from the two projects combined. Again, that would be available to apply towards public infrastructure. And I know Ms. Smith can talk more about that as needed. So that's what I have for you. Obviously, would welcome any questions now or throughout the rest of the conversation, I guess when we get to that point in the agenda.
Or is there
Thank you.
a preference to complete the presentations then? Is there a preference to complete the presentations and then kind of do all questions? Because I think you had another piece, is that
I
right?
think there was,
Yes,
right?
I have a
Yep.
piece, and then the question would be, we'll have take the public comment. And then
then
if council
council.
wants to ask questions now, but I think we had targeted when you get to that
Right.
specific item on
Okay.
your agenda, having your
Perfect.
council discussion.
Sounds good. So you're up next.
Thank you. So following up, Justin, if you'll please go back one slide. I know it's tiny, but we have talked about the fact that, with TIF revenue sharing, that is something on early TIF projects in the city of Mission. There are times where the city had allocated 100% of the increment that was generated to the project. We, in recent years, have not approved a project, whether that is a tax abatement project or a TIF project, where 100% of increment or abatement is being provided to the developer. There has been direction from the council and a strong prerogative to make sure that we're retaining a portion of that to cover costs. And those can be very different when looking at tax abatement versus TIF, and I won't go into that this evening. But I did want to underscore the point that there is not a consideration of giving 100% of any increment to the developer. As far as public TIF eligible expenses within the districts associated with the Lanes project and the Encore project, we have expenses related to the Rock Creek Channel and the proposed improvements to Martway that are occurring in the future that are in excess of, in total, of the combined TIF estimates that are generated here. So one thing before I sort of start walking through the impacts of development on municipal services, which is a conversation and questions that we've had, I did want to say that, I hear from council, I've had questions from council and oftentimes from members of the public about, every project that comes forward has a positive staff recommendation. And that's true. There are projects that never make it to this point because the developer is asking for 100% or more of the TIF allocation. The developer is not willing to consider incorporating things that are of value. Sustainability, Mr. Kimmel didn't touch on the attainable housing. That's a part of this project, with 20% of the units being set aside at 60% of AMI for that 20-year period. So there are a lot of deals that don't make sense based on finances, community values, council priorities, that don't make it to this point. So if it's in front of you, we've spent months typically reviewing those numbers. And again, it's always 100% the council's discretion about whether or not to grant those incentives. So one of the questions that I know Councilmember Kring has had, and it's a great one, and that is, what is the impact of these developments on our municipal services? So we do have the financial analysis, which we've just run through, and there was a lot more specificity in Mr. Kimmel's memo in the packet. But what else is important when we're considering and evaluating these projects? We also have to really think about the timing and the magnitude of projected revenues, and we'll kind of touch on some of these things in more detail in the slides coming up. We look at ongoing or new municipal service demands. We look at infrastructure maintenance obligations and long-term fiscal sustainability. So tonight, we're going to briefly touch on 3 key service delivery areas: police, public works, and parks and recreation. Tonight's presentation will be followed up with a longer, probably too long for some of your reading pleasure, but that's more narrative. And I will say that a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight and a lot of what you will see in this follow-up memo at this point is very qualitative in nature. We're still sort of in the infancy stages of being able to collect data about the potential impacts that some of these developments have on our communities. But what we wanted to show you tonight is the factors that we're considering and the metrics that we're developing in order to be able to quantify those more specifically as we move forward. So next slide, please. We've talked about this in the past, but what should we be considering whenever we look at a request for incentives? Granting incentives is always at the discretion of the council, and we evaluate every project on its own merits. Precedent doesn't matter. And oftentimes you will have a developer who walks through the door who says, I know that Sunflower Development got X on that deal, or I know that Millhouse got X on that deal, and I want the same deal. Well, guess what? We have to still go through exactly the same process. We have to evaluate every project for its individual and specific components and determine what makes sense. The city's project team is always focused on minimizing the risk, both current and future, to residents and businesses. We also look at, will the incentive investment create sufficient net public benefit relative to the public cost? And that can be defined in a lot of ways. It's not always dollars and cents. And we have to really consider the cumulative effects. And that's something that as we look at, and I think you'll see some of the information that we're presenting tonight, where we are today with effectively the locale and the lanes and now potentially the Encore coming online. We have to look at those, and we're kind of evaluating where we are at this point in time, but we also need to continue to evaluate the block project, which we anticipate will be coming back later this year. The Millhouse project, some of those other kinds of things. So we have to really consider the cumulative effect across all of our service delivery areas. And then, is the project advancing broader goals or community values? And again, that goes to, it's not always just a dollars and cents calculation. So first, let's kind of look at some public works impact. What are some of the unique factors that we need to think about when we're looking at the impact of a development project on public works? In the case of public works, the decisions and the issues are much more infrastructure driven as opposed to staff driven, particularly in a landlocked community like Mission. We're not adding streets that need to be plowed. We're not adding streets that need to be paved. We're not adding new stormwater systems. So the focus shifts a little bit there. We really are looking at things that are tied to life cycle maintenance obligations rather than immediate staffing. We look at traffic and stormwater impacts, and that is reviewed initially at the preliminary development plan stage. So before a set of plans is ever brought forward or considered, a developer is required to do a traffic study and a stormwater study, and the results of those are factored into the preliminary development plan and ultimately the design of the project. We look at system capacity impact, and I think Councilmember Vaughn has asked some questions recently about the capacity of water and wastewater systems in particular to handle the additional loads. One of the things that when we think about where the development is occurring, these multifamily developments in particular, and that's really where our focus is this evening, they're occurring along our arterial and collector streets, most of which have been reconstructed or redone in recent history to appropriate street standards, right? And so when we think about the impacts there, we're not building these kinds of developments on residential streets in areas where we know we are already up against full depth reconstruction and really expensive costs. Some of the impacts as it relates to public works are mitigated in the course of the incentive discussions because we have dedicated infrastructure revenue streams. And so when we're talking about property tax increment, for example, and a TIF project, those are revenues that are not, or not all of them, or a significant portion of them are dedicated to public works activities. We're funding stormwater with stormwater utility revenues. We're funding streets in part through gas tax and dedicated street sales tax. So we want to look at all of the ways that we're funding these things that are impacted and really evaluate the impact that the incentive or the negotiated incentive might have. A lot of other things related to public works, but those are some of the big drivers. One of them also being that we are already really doing and engaged in a lot of this planning work through our budget and 5-year CIP development process. We're looking out and planning for the development and reconstruction of these streets unrelated to any development which might occur. Next slide, please. So when we stop and think about Parks and Recreation impacts, again, what are some of the unique factors that we look at as we evaluate Parks and Recreation and development within our city? We already know that Mission is below national benchmarks for developed parkland per 1,000 residents. That's a function of us being a landlocked community. We learned back in 2015 when we did the Park Master Plan, the National Parks and Recreation Association recommends that you have approximately between 62.5 and 100 acres of developed parkland for every 1,000 residents. We have 33.71 acres of developed parkland in our community and limited opportunities to grow that. Again, we have to be reasonable and thoughtful about where we can impact that. We look at what other regional park facilities are available and maintained by others. But that's something that we will be up against. We know we're up against and we'll be up against as long as we're 2.5 square miles. Parks and Recreation impacts will be focused more on operational needs and impacts, both park and facility maintenance and staffing. And so we need to think about as we're having, and so unlike infrastructure where you're looking on a longer term horizon, with Parks and Recreation, as soon as you fill up that multifamily complex with residents, you have people who are accessing your parks, accessing your recreation facilities. And so you really have to be prepared for that. You have to think about, what other impacts you might have. So trash collection, higher wear and tear on playground equipment, the need to replace some of those things sooner. Other facilities, I think we have capacity to a certain extent at our community center with respect to membership, but certainly really studying those operational impacts. Again, something that we have been discussing through our budget process for the last at least 2, if not 3 years or more, as we've been adding park amenities and park assets in our outdoor park system. We also have the opportunity to look at other tools to support Parks and Recreation goals, such as parkland dedication, although we don't have enough acreage in most projects. But one of the things we've talked about relative to Gateway, for example, is if a new plan comes forward, when a new plan comes forward, that we look at incorporating more green space than we've seen in previous plans. Trail easements, we've asked and had trail easements dedicated. We've had cash contributions that aren't earmarked for any specific purpose. And so that has provided an opportunity, or will provide an opportunity in some cases, for some different discussions with council about how you want to allocate those resources. We've looked at enhanced landscaping. You could look at public art situations, et cetera. And again, similar to streets and stormwater, some of the impacts that the incentives are going to have are mitigated because we have a dedicated revenue stream for Parks and Recreation. I'm going to stop here briefly and turn it over to Chief Madden to talk a little bit more about where we have a little bit more in terms of numbers, the impacts on the police department, and then I'll close very quickly before we move to public.
Thank you. Go to the next slide. When we're looking at developing and what impacts can have on the police department, we have some data that we can point to. And for example, 2025, we had the 15,274 events. Those are visualized on that map, but I want to just it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that on the heat map with what data we have, that's where it's most highly concentrated. And that number, that 15,274 events per year, it has been pretty stable since 2020. There was a reduction in 2021 for the C word that we don't like to talk about. And but
Just say that.
the COVID. Yeah, so what that equates to, for example, in 2025, we had approximately 18 officers average throughout the year, 849 events per officer. An event is anything. It's anything that a ticket, call, whether they take a report or not, any event they go out on. If they're checking, if they're going through the apartment complexes at night, a lot of officers will put that in their computer, and that logs that as an event. So
the event is not necessarily responding, it's just when they go out. Is that?
Yeah, it's any activity that a police officer is dedicated to at that moment.
And the reason that's important, and it's confusing because I had a lot of these same questions as Chief and I were talking about, because I like to think about it in terms of calls, right? But this is a little bit cleaner, but it's looking at times that are taking that officer out of service to be available to respond to something else. So it doesn't matter what they're responding to, they just can't be somewhere else in the city to do that.
And I think it's important to use events, because as we bring in new development, we're not going to lower our expectations of where officers are going to be. If they're doing apartment lot checks at the Falls at night, they're going to be doing apartment lot checks at these other residences, at, new developments as well. So that's kind of the reasoning for why using events is what we kind of look at when we look at metrics. And also, when fully staffed, we're allocated of 29 sworn staff, and that comes out to, obviously 2.9 sworn per 1,000, which it's high. It's on the high end, one of the highest in the county and in the Northeast Johnson County. But our officers are also responding to more calls per officer than almost every police department in Johnson County as well. So that's another factor that considers it. And then the benchmarks would suggest 1.2 to 2 sworn officers per 1,000, but that and a little bit higher for levels, higher service levels, which we like to believe that we provide. But there's so many factors that influence what that number could or should be. I mean, what we deal with mostly is our geography, where we are situated within the metro area. We have 3 of the main thoroughfares in this metro that run through this city. It brings a lot of traffic. A lot of people from other areas come through Mission, and that drives our call load, whether it be traffic accidents, retail theft, any other service that we provide. The next slide. This breaks it down a little bit further. When you're on a heat map and you zoom in and look at, this is kind of where we stand on calls in the business district. It kind of represents where we have the highest number of calls. It's fairly spread out, but it's definitely not the overwhelming big red blob that you see when you're looking at the entire city. And so we narrow that down when we're looking at that, so we can understand what's happening in a location. The next. What's that? So that on the heat map feature of our crime map, it puts a C there for a call. Now, it doesn't include for a call, for an incident, any event, but it doesn't, like if you keep zooming in, those continue to broaden out. They're kind of clustered.
opposed to an event. The call is initiated by a patron, but an event is initiated by a police.
An event could be either.
Okay.
It's all activities combined.
Okay.
So what are we looking at when we're evaluating what needs or resources that we may need as we continue to grow our population? And what we've done is look at calls per unit of existing apartment communities to kind of give us a gauge, because if we don't use a per unit measurement, we don't get an accurate representation. I mean, we can't compare the Falls at 435 units to the Flats at 77 units. So we have to give a weight to that and really extrapolate that data to figure out what the impact is going to be.
I just ask, what is the current crime rate in Mission?
I don't have that. I don't have it right in front of me. It's
It's above the national average and it's above
oh,
Johnson County, big time.
oh, and that is driven by our low population, but high number of high retail.
We can incorporate some of those statistics when we get this full report out too,
Okay.
if you would like to see that.
Yeah, yeah. And if you take the retail theft out of it, we're doing pretty good. So we'll continue to evaluate this data, continue to narrow it down, watch what the trends are with our newer complexes and the time we spend on calls, what our overtime trends are, and what, the workload of an officer is. We want to make sure that we don't want to get into the position that where officers are running from call to call and they don't have any time to patrol in the neighborhoods and spend time on some of the traffic needs. And it's
I'm going to interject just because I do want you to specifically touch on. So if you look at the Falls and that 1.7 events per unit, Silverwood, which is another, is 1.39. The locale, which we've had really online and operating for almost 6 years, which doesn't seem possible, but at the 0.425, and the lanes, which has been really fully operational since late 2024 at 3.52. So we watch those numbers and we'll continue to watch those numbers to see what those trends are doing in terms of what is the call load being generated by these specific developments. And so if you put, we could put all of our apartment complexes on here, but this is really just to illustrate that so far we haven't seen a high impact to calls for service in the new developments that have been added.
Yeah, and Laura, you said 3.52 for lanes, but I did just want to clarify that's
0.35.
0.352. Yes.
0.352.
Would you mind if you're going to send out a more detailed report doing the numbers per single family house as well? If you have that.
Or there's no retreat on here.
well,
We didn't do all of them.
Yeah.
We just picked some
Yeah.
ones to illustrate.
yeah, we picked, so when you look at some of our, like the retreat, there's, when we're looking at the data, we have to enter an address to get the data. Well, the retreat has, 30 addresses. So actually, our intern is working on getting data for all of the, going through and every address. So, well, I know the number for the retreat because I just got it. It's 1.3. 1.3 events per unit. And it's important to remember that, so it's not one multifamily project that's going to put us, it's cumulative. And so that's why we're keeping, and that's important to remember because we have one, if not two budget cycles to continue to evaluate what our needs might be. So at this point, with what we have and what's online now, there's not really a need to expand the department. what is important is that we continue to maintain the competitive salary so we don't get in a position that we are falling short and those ratios get off kilter, because it is very important to us, and I know you all, that we maintain a very high level of service for our community. And also the short-term investments that you have and are and can continue to make in things, infrastructure that you can help make this community more safe with pedestrian, bicycle safety, all in vehicle safety, through traffic calming, hawk signals, bike lanes, those kind of things that we can continue to work on and monitor for new ideas and trends to make, whether it's somebody that just doesn't feel safe or if it's actually not safe, that we can continue to make that even better. So that's what I have for you tonight.
And really, this last slide, I've already covered, I think, most of this, but again, what else can we tell you now? As we've mentioned, a lot of this data is qualitative, will continue to be, but we have built and are building the tools to collect more quantitative. We will continue to look at and evaluate where we have the opportunity to mitigate impacts on public works or parks and recreation of these projects because of existing dedicated revenue streams that aren't ever factored into the incentive conversations or discussions. So sales tax is always outside of that process. Stormwater utility fees are always outside of that process. Again, as the chief mentioned, the project timeline is really critical in our budget evaluation cycles. And if you think about the time, typically we are on a 2+ year horizon from the time you all consider a redevelopment agreement to the time a project is completed and we have residents moving in. And so that gives us, we need to be thinking about the process. And I think, Councilmember Crane's questions remind us that we haven't been as comprehensive in including that thought process that we've applied in our public conversation. So we will do a better job of that going forward. And again, we do much of the work surrounding streets and stormwater and parks through our annual budget and CIP processes. And you're going to continue to see that in the coming months as it relates to all of this. So with that, I think our portion of the public hearing presentation is over, and you would be ready for public comment.
Okay, yes. If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on the adoption of a tax increment financing redevelopment project plan for Rock Creek Redevelopment District Number 3C, now would be the time. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we will call on you to come to the lectern to make your comments. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. If I need to confirm something that may have been difficult to hear, I will ask for clarification. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. And again, this is only on the public hearing subject matter. Do we have any public comments? Anyone online? Okay. Seeing none, thank you to those attending this evening. Because the recommendation from staff was just presented to the council in last Friday's agenda packet, the council has indicated they are not prepared to vote on this item tonight. Council discussion will still occur on this item later on the agenda, but at this time, I will continue the public hearing on the tax increment financing redevelopment project plan for Rock Creek Redevelopment District Number 3C to the June 3rd, 2026 special city council meeting at 6 p.m. for further discussion and action. All right, next would be the issuance of notes and bonds. We do not have any items related to the issuance of notes or bonds on our agenda this evening, so we will move on to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda has 3 items tonight. Our council committees met on May 6th and fully discussed each of these items. The committees agreed that the items listed on our consent agenda are routine enough to be considered under a single motion. If a council member or member of the public would like an item removed from the consent agenda, they may request that at this time. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, I move the city council adopt the consent agenda as printed, items 4A through 4E.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Robin, please. Oh, sorry, Ben, yes.
I might be mistaken. I think you might have said there were 3 items on the consent agenda. I just wanted to, for everybody to be clear, there were 5.
I did say 3 in there, or in fact 5. All right, yes. So corrected our 5 items on our consent agenda tonight. Yes, good counting. Good job. Right, with that, any further comments or questions? Robin, please call the roll.
Hayden Chomposi. Aye. Pring.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Camosa.
Aye.
Chosi.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Right, thank you. Next, we move into public comment. If any members of the public would like to make a comment on an item that is not included on our agenda this evening, now would be the time. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Any comments on items not on our agenda? Seeing none, we will move into our action items. We do not have any items coming forward from the Planning Commission this evening, so we will move into our committee reports. Councilmember Schmidt, will you please provide a report from the Finance and Administration Committee?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm paper shuffling here, so give me one moment. There we are. Finance and Administration Committee met on May 6th and considered 4 items. The meeting minutes and acceptance of 2025 annual audit were approved under the consent agenda earlier tonight. The Lanes TIF cap increase and an ordinance adopting a TIF redevelopment project plan and authoring execution of an amended and restated redevelopment agreement with Encore Land LLC will be considered under the regular agenda this evening. Item 7A, the Lanes TIF cap increase. Last year, Sunflower Development Group submitted a formal request asking the council to consider an increase to the tax increment financing cap outlined in the December 2020 redevelopment agreement between the city and residents on Rock Creek LLC. The request was driven by unforeseen increases in concrete and interest carry costs, which escalated significantly from the original budget. The developer has indicated these costs could not have been reasonably anticipated at the time the initial project budget estimates were submitted and ultimately approved. In addition, valuation growth that formed the basis for the 2020 analysis has proven to be dramatically higher than originally anticipated. The council has reviewed and discussed the request at several meetings since the first of the year and are positioned to make a decision on the request this evening. I'd like to ask staff and the city's municipal advisor to provide a final recap of the recommendation for the council.
That would be Mr. Kimmel, please.
Great. Mr. Kimmel, come on up.
Well, hello again, Mayor and council members, Bruce Kimmel with others. This PowerPoint presentation largely mirrors, again, the memo that was in your council packet and also materials that were discussed both, I believe, on April 15th and May 6th, if I have my dates correct. So I won't go through this in exhaustive detail, but of course would be happy to answer any questions. You are familiar with the dynamics of what happened during the development of the lanes and how the TIF clock started right away and really caused a 3, almost 4-year delay in the collection of meaningful TIF revenues. The cost of the project being significantly higher, as Councilmember Schmidt mentioned, and the fact that it's the lanes is appraised and assessed at a much higher value now than what was contemplated back in the year 2020 when this was first approved. To that point, I think it's noteworthy that the most recent value that Johnson County has put on the lanes, so assessed 26 for pay 27, is 4.6 million. Again, that's the assessed value, not the appraised value. The appraised value is much higher than that. And that value of 4.6 million is actually higher than what was projected at the end of the 20-year term back when we were forecasting in the year 2020. So quite a bit more value on that property now than was contemplated 6 years ago. And so it's generating much more in property taxes and much more in TIF than was estimated at that time as well. If we could go ahead to the slide that has the numbers, more small numbers, but a little more readable than the last one. So this was in the memo as well. This is the forecast with the existing TIF percentages, right? And the TIF cap as it currently stands at $5.9 million. The highlighted percentages and values, as noted in my memo, was really just to dial it in to the existing TIF cap amount of 5.9 million. So you can see again, essentially losing the first 3.5 years on the front end of the 20 years and almost 3 years on the back end of the 20 years with this set of assumptions if we were to keep those percentages and the 5.9 reimbursement cap. Then we can go to the next slide. And again, you've seen this before, but this is the proposed changes in the percentages and increasing the TIF reimbursement cap to $7 million. Here, again, using the same projections as to the future increase in valuations. As before, you can see how we effectively go through most all of the 20-year term in order to get to that $7 million threshold. And the city also would then be collecting a larger percentage and amount of the TIF, about $2.6 million in aggregate versus about $2 million in the previous set of projections. And then the last slide is new information. Again, I've condensed some of the columns here in order to make room on the right-hand side for the new information. But this again is going back to, okay, what if you didn't approve these recommended changes? And it goes to the questions that Councilmember Chosi asked at a previous meeting. So what I did here is I simplified a little bit. You can see that in year 18, I took out that 14% deal and just said, okay, what if we just are done after year 17 and we've reached that $5.9 million threshold at that point. You can see that the numbers aren't quite the same as before. But what I wanted to really focus on then is what are the impacts to the school district and the county respectively. So you may recall from previous discussions that with TIF, the school district's core 28 mills is excluded from TIF. They get the benefit and the taxes from those 28 mills on the full value of the property. They've been doing that since and will continue to do that during the TIF term. So you can see based on 28 mills in that first column there, what the school district's taxes would be based on the total assessed value that's projected over there on the left-hand side. The school district also has 9 mills for 2 different purposes, including their bond fund. And that's obviously generating a lot less, and it's based on just the base value. So those are the base taxes on the base value, and it's about $2,400 per year. But then you can see if we reach the end of the TIF term, that would jump up to somewhere in the $70,000 range based on the full valuation. And the exercise is similar for the county based on their current mill rate of 17 mills. You can see that when it's applied just to the base value, they're collecting about $4,400 per year. And then should that TIF district or TIF project, end early, that would jump up to somewhere around $140,000 to $150,000 per year for the county.
Bruce, can I ask a quick
Yes.
question? Just to make sure I'm reading it right on the school district piece, especially what the school district is gaining by having the project on those 28 mills that are protected is a much bigger figure, right, than if that property was not improved?
Correct. Yep. So they definitely, by having those protected mills, they are protected. I think that's a good way of putting it. And gain the full, really almost the full benefit of that new valuation due to the Lanes project. So the only other thing I would just note is that, and again, I don't want to belabor this point, but it is, I think, an interesting nuance that if you were to look at our 2020 projections to now, and the value that the school district and the county are receiving from having a much more highly valued project. Even with the extension of the TIF as is being proposed to the higher value, the value after that point for the school district and the county is going to be much higher than what they would get in the blue shaded areas. And I think that's kind of intuitive, but I did just want to note that. So hopefully that is helpful information as to what the consequences are. But all in all, the city, the county, and the school district are doing better in the long run, certainly from having this much higher valuation on the project. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I guess my question is, how does that work that they get so much more money just over a year? I don't get that.
You mean the school district and the county, Councilmember Rivon?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we're assuming here is that you don't increase the TIF cap, you don't change the percentages, and you just leave things in place. And if these values continue to increase, as we're showing here, they would hit that $5.9 million cap that's existing essentially 3 years early, right? And so at that point, if that were to happen, the school district would then get the 9 mills on the full value, the county would get the full value for their 17 mills.
I didn't get that it was.
Yeah, it's not the most intuitive
And
thing.
nothing, basically nothing for the first 17 years changes. We're only really from the existing deal that already
Correct.
has been inked. We're just talking about those last final 3 years.
So when does the school district get to, have we already approached them with this, or?
They don't have a say at this point
At this
because the district was established a number of years ago. The project was established a number of years ago. So this is really a city decision on whether to change the terms of this TIF arrangement with the lanes and the developer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, that's really what I was hoping to illustrate. And I know the spreadsheets have a tendency to make our eyes go kind of blurry, but this is really exactly what I was hoping for, because for one thing, it shows just this project existing alone has done more for the school than we could possibly hope to take away from them by extending the TIF cap, right? And the other thing that I think is important to remember is when we initially approved this TIF deal, right? None of the taxing jurisdictions, based on the projections at the time, would have expected to be getting anything in years 18 through 20. This is really that blue portion is let's call it a bonus, a nice, happy, the valuations have gone up faster than expected. And so if the TIF retired early, this is the sort of bonus that they might reap. But they didn't expect that when they first saw this deal. To me, what this is answering, the question that this is answering for me is how much, if we vote yes tonight on this question, are these taxing jurisdictions not going to receive based on, extending the TIF cap? But they weren't really expecting to receive that when we initiated the TIF deal anyway. It's just, for me, it's important to ask this because the rising valuations is sort of, that benefits all the taxing jurisdictions. But I think it's reasonable here, and especially to look at the schools and the counties specifically. So Bruce, I'm glad those are the ones you chose, because A, we see the schools are doing much better on this property than they would have without the project. And B, if you think about sort of what the county might be doing with the money, is probably helping us invest in our stormwater and our roads and things that we're going to turn around and do with this money. And I think relative to what they're, like Bruce said, the amounts that these jurisdictions stand to receive after the TIF retires completely, these numbers in blue are, I think, relatively modest. And that's what I was hoping to wrap my head around tonight.
Wanda, did you have another question?
Yeah, one last question. So does this impact individual homeowners in the meantime before we get this big TIF payout?
Councilmember Vaughn and council members, I would say no. I mean, I think Councilmember Chosy was sort of alluding to this. These numbers are they're not modest for us as individuals, but for these entities, they are really modest numbers. And and especially if you think about the time value of money and what these dollars will be worth in real buying power, 15 years from now, it'll be even less, right? These are what we call future value numbers, but if you were to discount them back to today's dollars, they wouldn't even be worth that much that we're showing in those blue boxes. So I don't mean to sound cavalier or to poo-poo this, but again, like I indicated before, the overall benefit to these other jurisdictions, as well as to the county, is certainly a lot more in the long term than what we estimated 6 years ago.
And I think your question was also specific to, is it shifting any of that burden to a single family
Oh, okay.
property owner? Which the answer is also no.
Okay, thank you.
No, it does not do that.
Yeah, and in part,
Sorry, I didn't understand.
and Bruce or Laura, you could probably be more eloquent on this than I am, but in part that's because we retain the taxes that we were getting at the property value in year 0, we keep getting throughout the TIF. So there's no city like loss in tax revenue that's coming to us. Plus, because of the TIF revenue sharing aspect that Laura and Bruce were already talking about, the city is getting more that can be used for those TIF eligible project costs in addition to that base tax number, right?
Yes, and going towards things. So if you think about the ability to use, if stormwater is an eligible public TIF eligible expense, homeowners, every individual homeowner and business in our community pays a stormwater utility fee. So if we're able to capture some of that increment, that does reduce a burden potentially on the homeowners in that fashion. The same way with money that could be dedicated to whatever portion of street improvements that our residents are paying. So it's not a direct correlation, but I think there are some connections definitely as it relates to infrastructure. And part of the reason why I think it's important, and it's been an important priority of this council, not to give away 100% of that increment. We need to look at making sure that we are sharing that responsibility and factoring in the burden for our existing homeowners and businesses.
Thank you. So considering the factors that Mr. Kimmel just went over, staff has recommended that the developer's request for the increase in the TIF cap be approved. Mayor, I move the City Council approve the resolution approving an amendment to the 2020 redevelopment agreement with Residents on Rock Creek LLC to increase the tax increment financing cap to $7 million and revise the TIF revenue sharing percentages in years 11 through 20 of the agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on this item? Again, public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone online, Justin? Seeing none, any further council comments or discussion? Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, getting away from the details and the numbers, I want to say that I do just think that overall, this extension really, contrary to what I first thought when I heard, oh, let's extend the TIF cap, just knee-jerk reaction. Well, didn't we already make the deal? I think this really is more in line with the spirit of the kind of the TIF statute and the deal that was made at the time. And I think it makes a lot of sense, just given that, I think as valuations go up, costs go up. It's just sort of one of those things that I think not doing this amendment, right, I think would sort of put us in the position of giving up real dollars that we sort of expected to have in this project. And that's the key for me as to why I think this is a reasonable idea.
Yep. Any other council comments? Yeah, Debbie?
I'm looking at this diligently. As you know, I'm not in favor of adding additional apartments. I just think we have so many, and I don't want to be known as apartment central. That's just my personal and professional opinion. However, I think what you've done here in terms of the calculations and analytics that support how much the city will benefit from this is good for the project that you presented. And this is nothing about you, Mr. Floodman. It's just there's so many apartments we can have in 2.5 square miles, and adding another one is not unique in nature at all. But I will be supporting this because I think this makes sense for the city, and it's already gone by. I voted against it to begin with as a project, but I will be supporting this change.
Any other comments or questions? Yeah, Brian?
I think it's really easy for folks like myself to come in here with, because I'm only halfway through my first term, with this perception of, oh, the city gives away money on projects like this. And the more I learn about the differences between TIF and an actual tax abatement, like, the more pleased I am, frankly, with this as a lever to fund improvements that otherwise would have been very difficult to fund. So this has been a good learning experience, I think, is what I'm really trying to say. And if I think it would behoove everybody to really, as best you can, understand the differences between the two, because I do think it's important.
Yeah, and I think for this project in particular, as Laura already alluded to, we're not going to be searching for projects to that need spending on the TIF funds that the city will be getting, including the increased TIF funds under the steel. You know, there's existing stormwater debt for stormwater work adjacent to that site, and then we are looking at Martway improvements that have been highlighted in several of our recent plans, both the regular maintenance that is needed, so to speak, on that street, but then additional bike and pedestrian amenities that will help really connect that into our Rock Creek trail system and improve walkability and bikeability in our city. And so I think getting the TIF with the share and the improved share with this deal, getting the TIF revenues for the project makes sense. So we're going to have increased funds that we kind of, as was alluded to down here, otherwise wouldn't have had for some of that core infrastructure work. Anything else? Yeah, Wanda?
I guess my last comment is that, you know, when he was talking about that exercise area, and I think the lanes also has like an outdoor exercise. Do we count that as parks? Because I know the county has parks, the city has parks. Can the lanes have a park?
They could. We don't count those currently because they're really identified for the use of the residents and not the general public. So we really look at that parkland as anybody can come on and use that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not checking IDs on their fitness, centers, but at the same time, we don't count any of the sort of dog park features or fitness areas as a part of that.
But we have had conversations going back to the Parks Master Plan, et cetera, that while we are down in terms of actual city park acres per resident, if you look at sort of the surrounding area and some of those other park amenities, that if you go just a little beyond our city borders, our public parks that our folks can access, those numbers start looking better.
Yes.
Yeah, Ben?
Yeah. Come on. Are we on? Okay. Yeah, and just to be clear, this question on the TIF amendment is specific to the lanes, the existing constructed project.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Josie,
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Bond.
Aye.
Crane.
Aye.
Camosa.
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 7B, ordinance adopting a TIF redevelopment project plan and authorizing execution of an amended and restated redevelopment agreement with Encore Land LLC. We heard presentations from the developer, staff, and members of the city's development consulting team, as well as comments from the public under the public hearing item earlier in the meeting. Although the council's vote on this ordinance will be deferred until the public hearing, which the mayor has continued to the June 3rd, 2026 special city council meeting, it is appropriate for any council discussion on this item now. Is there anyone? Yep.
Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, is anything more we want to say about this from staff?
We're available to answer any
Okay.
questions that you have.
I mean, given that this is, well, we've had to sort of bite our tongues all night until now about this. I just wanted to remark, basically in response to some things that Mr. Floodman said from Sunflower Development, that it was an interesting parcel and an interesting sort of challenge to get this development in. And for us, it's an interesting piece of land in the city with, I think, kind of important land use considerations. And as far as I'm concerned, Sunflower has done a quite a good job at getting the most out of this kind of awkward parcel that I think you possibly can, while aligning to our land use vision and, kind of our goals for development within the city. I think everything Mr. Floodman said about how this kind of project is specifically important for continuing to support our businesses on Johnson Drive and Martway, and just not basically stop letting these parcels sit there and be unproductive kind of voids on our map. I think they've really brought us something that fits all those criteria really well. So I'm in favor of this project, and I just wanted to say that in response to what Mr. Floodman said earlier.
Yeah, and to that point, I think the word synergy kind of usually makes me cringe due to its appropriation by business speak, but I do think that's appropriate for this project here, because if you look at the investment that Sunflower is interested in making and has already made, with the lanes and the purchase of Mission Mart and now the interest in the Encore project, I think really trying to improve that corridor. And I think it's good to flag, we talk about our shops on Johnson Drive and maybe thinking a little bit west of this project a lot of the times when we talk about our small business community, but really there are a lot of small business owners in Mission Mart as well. And so, we want to see that full and thriving. And I think we keep hearing some of the same pieces about the need, what retailers are looking for in this scary retail environment. They want bodies, right there. And so I think if we can build up the density, that will help support some of our other goals. We often get asked, what are we doing to support our small businesses, as we're considering incentives with some of these larger projects. And I see it all as, interconnected. And if we can bring the people, then we can support the retail, the restaurants and everything in our small shops. Yeah. Sam.
Yeah, just a point I would want to add too is that I also look at it as getting more people into Mission, and part of that is finding creative solutions to how much the office market has dipped since the pandemic and kind of the development of technology to work remotely. I mean, for example, we talked, I know, in a previous meeting about the Mission Tower, that's a 90% vacancy. Those are people who aren't coming back. So this is a solution that, at least in my mind, to bring, more wallets to the area to spend money and support the local economy.
Yeah, Josepha.
I do think it's important to acknowledge that in Ward 1, and I realize that this development is not going to be in Ward 1, but there is a lot of fear around yet another apartment that is added but not cared for. And so I think that that's something that's important for all of us to be aware of. I think that we probably have a number of residents who, while they are maybe not against like better housing options for people who can't purchase homes or something, do see that that there is always a risk for a developer to build it and leave again. And we see, based on all of the work that you all have done for us and that you all have done on our behalf as well, that that's not a thing that we have a fear of. But I would be remiss if I did not mention that I've heard from multiple residents that that is a concern.
Yeah, Brian.
I'm really sorry, but I have to do more math for the group. So I'm going to introduce a little bit of my own.
State PM and we're math.
I know. This comment and question actually is really for the chief. So I appreciate what you brought up about, I think the number was 2.9 sworn officers per 1,000 residents. Again, this is my math, so hopefully it holds true. If we develop all of, I think, the apartments that are on the table and they get full, that has our population hit roughly 12,000 people, which would bring that sworn officer count down to about 2.4, which I think is still in that high service band that you mentioned. So my question, which I'm sorry it's taking me so long to get to, is I just want to make sure that your confidence level is still high in our ability to continue to deliver the response times, the traffic enforcement, the community outreach with that, because that is half an officer decrease, like per 1,000 folks, so that your confidence level is still high without burning out the staff that we have, the officers that we have.
There are a lot of factors that go into that. And when you talk about the service level, if you look at it right now, our minimum staffing on patrol right now is three officers, including a supervisor. What makes me the most worried is one, we're putting all these units in the business district in an area that we already have a lot of traffic complaints, a lot of pedestrian angst and things like that. But we're adding like you said, depending on what calculation you use, 1.5 persons per unit, we have potential to increase our population in the 20s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
20%. Yep.
And so that brings people, that brings relationships. And so what I worry about is, when we have a domestic violence call, a domestic disturbance call that results in an arrest, that if there's, it's a mandatory arrest if there's probable cause to believe that a crime occurred. That takes it takes all three officers off the street for a certain period of time. But it takes two of the three officers off the street for probably 2 to 3 hours. One is usually transporting down to the adult detention center. The other one's trying to make sure we get the reports, because all those reports have to be to the DA's office by the morning. And so that's what gives me angst. Like, how many more of those situations are we going to have by increasing our population by that? But minus absent that and those things, that's kind of what drives what makes me think about what we might need.
Thank you.
I want to just piggyback on that just briefly. So 2.9, I think if I do the math using your population increase, and I really think about what we have available for patrol, which is not 29.
No.
It's 22.
Mhm.
Okay. That number drops to 1.83. So we're at, or we're on the much lower end of those benchmark ranges, right? And so those are the kinds of conversations that we're having. I don't want to feel comfortable at 2.9. That's also why we suggested this evening that one of the things that's been a tremendous help that you all have already done is make sure that we're able to compete in the marketplace to attract and retain staff. Because when we're down 6 or 7 officers, we're already starting at a point that's, significantly disadvantaged from that standpoint. So we need to be able to keep those factors in mind. I think the other thing is we've talked a lot about succession planning and some of the things that will be occurring in the police department, and thinking about what does the structure of that department look like going forward based on reallocation of personnel in existing positions. So a lot of factors that go into that, but I can assure you, we don't get comfortable at 2.9 where we are now, but there are a lot of ways to sort of slice and dice and do that math.
Yeah, and I did want to point out too, in case anyone tuned in late from the original presentation, but the national benchmarks are 1.2 to 2 sworn officers per 1,000. And that's just sworn officers. It's not talking about the percentage that are patrol staff or anything. And so I think it's obviously something we can continue to keep an eye on, but that I just did want to flag that we would still be well above sort of that national benchmarking range. Yeah, Ben? And then Cheryl?
Yeah, I think it's important also to look at when we talk about, as between these two projects, if they're 400 something residents and that math works out to another officer that needs to be hired, in 2029 with both of these projects online, if you look back at the charts, the city's TIF share alone covers the salary of a police officer, not to mention, the knock-on sales tax, and then the other impacts we expect from a development like this to offer for the tax base. So that's kind of what I'm always hammering on when I say I think density brings its own sort of fiscal resilience, right? We're not adding lane miles of roads. We're not adding new retail with a lot of theft. We're not adding any new sort of linear feet of infrastructure, right? We're taking advantage of land and infrastructure we've already got to add basically more people and more people that are going to spend money and generate tax base for the city. And I think just looking at these numbers we've seen tonight, it's pretty clear that just even with the TIF deal in place, which is a significant sort of diminishment of what we might otherwise collect in tax revenue, it already seems to be well on the way to covering any burden that it might generate, just back of the envelope as I see it.
Yeah, Cheryl?
Well, one of the things I want to say is that, you know, with the Wendy's there and everything, and that area being somewhat blighted, and a lot of citizens being looking forward to having something, hopefully it'll generate some more interest in associated areas. And I know this is a huge undertaking, but it really has a lot to do with making this community look different again.
Yeah, and I do think to Cheryl's point that, you know, we had heard of some interest in, for example, the old Wild Oats building. And I think there is some heartburn that some folks have about being sort of that first mover in an area, right? And if we have this going all the way down Martway and extending towards that western edge, then hopefully, yes, it's not just this development, the tax revenues, the TIF revenues associated with this, but other parcels that will hopefully have a more valuable use coming in connection with seeing a successful project here. Josefa, yep.
Since I want to cycle one back into the police question, if any of you all keep an eye on the crime map that is on the city website, this is anecdotal, and I'm sure that we will get more information as we go. But in the last 30 days, over 300 calls, over 300 events were logged, and only 45 were for crime. And a lot of those are for failure to appear. And so while this is anecdotal, this should not be seen as final information, obviously. If our own website is to be trusted, which I always feel like it is, then I think that the due diligence is important, but that gives us a sense for scale of that kind of crime call versus like, hey, I need help with something call. I didn't look at what all the other calls are, but it's all a matter of public record, so we can all see it.
Yeah, Debbie?
I don't think I asked Mr. Floodman, do you have any security besides cameras? Do you have any security that is located on either the lanes or Encore?
If you can come up to the podium for that, we'd appreciate it.
We do have security that does patrol the lanes at times. It's outsourced through a vendor, Titan, that we've used on other projects. Fortunately, we haven't needed them the hours we have on other projects, but we do. And if we see an uptick, which we have not, then we'll increase hours. And again, hopefully that's another benefit, and you don't have to use your manpower because we have somebody privately that is at least on the street and hopefully deters anybody else from Mission Mart or lanes or other areas. So yes, we do. Yeah.
I can't. Anything else? Anything else?
I don't see anything else. So, Mayor, I move that the ordinance adopting a TIF redevelopment project plan and authorizing execution of an amended and restated redevelopment agreement with Encore Land LLC be tabled until the June 3rd, 2026 special city council meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any further council comment? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Josie,
Aye.
Kring,
Aye.
Schmid,
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Camosa.
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Council Member Carpenter Davis, will you please provide a report from the Community Development Committee?
Thank you, Mayor. The Community Development Committee also met on May 6th and considered 6 items: the meeting minutes, Parks and Recs, Recreation and Tree Commission tree plan, PCC indoor pool slide restoration, and Evergy traffic signal buyout at Johnson Drive and Barclay Street were approved under the consent agenda earlier tonight. Parks and Recreation Management Software and the 2027-2031 CARS 5-year program will be considered under the regular agenda this evening. Mission Parks and Rec has used myrec.com recreation management software for 5 years. While the platform has supported basic operational needs, several critical limitations have been identified in recent years. These limitations result in inefficiencies for both full and part-time staff and a less streamlined experience for patrons. Staff reviewed 8 recreation management software industry leaders to evaluate available solutions and identify a platform aligned with the department's current and future operational goals. This team reviewed each platform and narrowed potential vendors to 4. 3 additional staff members were added to the review committee for the final review. Staff identified and evaluated platforms based on key priorities, including consistent, reliable KPI and financial reporting, online reservation and facility booking capabilities, improved and intuitive patron registration experience, simplified administrative functionality for staff efficiency, integrated digital mobile app functionality for enhanced user engagement, scalability, and integration across programs, memberships, and rentals, regional use, and feedback from Parks and Recreation departments along with the cost. Civic Plus merged as the preferred vendor due to its comprehensive integrated platform and alignment with the department's operational goals. Several significant upgrades stood out during the review as well. To the team as well. The contract is anticipated to cover 3 years. The year 1 investment, which included implementation and training, is $32,685. The year 2 costs would be $21,100, and the contract calls for a 5% annual increase, $22,155 in year 3. The year 1 implementation, onboarding, and training costs of $32,685 are recommended to be paid from the Parks and Recreation Sales Tax Fund. This would be made possible because of $70,000 in savings realized by repair rather than replacement of room dividers in the Powell Community Center, actions that are expected to extend the useful life of the dividers and an additional 3 to 5 years. The annual reoccurring subscription fee will be funded from the PCC operating budget in subsequent years. If approved, staff training and onboarding for the new system would occur in August and September 2026, with a targeted go-live date of October 1st, 2026. Mayor, I move the City Council approve an agreement with Civic Plus for recreation management software, Civic Rec, including implementation, training, and ongoing subscription services.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any council comments or questions? Yeah, Josefa?
I forgot to ask, is pricing at all related to number of seats of people that we have trained on it? Like, is that a flat fee that they've given us? Anyone know?
And you want to come on up?
That's a flat.
Perfect, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions? Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank staff. I asked last time just to break out a little more information about what made the recommended vendor stand out and justify the higher price compared to some of the other options. So I appreciate seeing that information in the packet. It's quite detailed. I think some of the things you've identified on their own, single sign-on and things like this, could potentially cover all of that cost and more with some vendors. So I think I appreciate you going to the effort to just break that out a little further so that we in the public can see why that vendor is perhaps more cost effective even at that higher price.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Hayden Champosi,
Aye.
Vaughn. Aye. Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Camosa.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Kring.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Go ahead.
Hands off. 7C, 2027 to 2031 CARS 5-year program. Through a combination of state gas tax dollars and Johnson County General Fund revenues, the County Assistant Road System Program, CARS, provides funding to cities to construct and maintain certain eligible streets. Each year, cities submit a 5-year road program improvement plan to the county, from which projects are selected for funding up to 50% of the project's construction and construction inspection costs. Cities are responsible for design, right-of-way, and utility relocation costs. Each city is required to pass a resolution annually adopting a 5-year plan based on their own unique goals and objectives, and CARS projects are ultimately adopted as part of the county's annual budgeting process. The final commitment of funds occurs through the approval of specific interlocal agreements for each project. Mission's recommended 2027-2031 CARS program is similar to the 2026-2030 program with some cost escalators and including the following projects. 2027, Knoll Avenue from 67th Street to Martway and Roland Drive, Johnson Drive traffic signal. 2028, Martway Street from Woodson to Maple. 2029, Martway Street from Knoll Avenue to Roland Drive. 2030, Fox Ridge from 51st to 56th Street. 2031, 51st Street from Lamar east to the city limits. The project included in 2030 and 2031 are tentatively held as placeholders for planning and budgeting purposes and may be adjusted in future years as council reviews and updates the city comprehensive street maintenance program and seeks potential renewal of the dedicated streets tax. Approval of the resolution does not specifically commit the street to any expenditures of funds, and its purpose is to communicate to the county the CARS eligible projects the city is considering over the 2027-2031 planning horizon. Mayor, I move the City Council approve the resolution adopting the 5-year city-county street improvement program for the city of Mission for 2027-2031.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any council comments or questions? Oh, sorry. Yes, please come up to the microphone and state your name and city of residence for the record. And as a reminder, public comments are limited to 3 minutes.
My name is Sue Thompson. I live at Apollo Gardens Home Association in Mission. If you don't know, we're not a through street, so we don't get a lot of attention. We were built in 1965, and we have 84 townhomes in 10 blocks. At Apollo, we are having a real problem with erosion, and our streets are, they've never been redone. And I did not notice our streets were on your list. So I don't know what it's going to take to do it. One of our homes on the east side, the resident has put out $4,500 to have her house piered because it's sliding down the hill. The engineer said it was 0.9 inches down and turned. So she had to have piers put in on 2 sides of the house to keep it from going. We brought in 2 truckloads full of dirt to fill in the side, and that's all gone now, just from erosion, because we'd have no storm drains. The water just comes down, rushing down the hill and into the courtyards and into the streets and into the properties. So I would like for somehow for us to get on the list. And I don't know till 31. I don't know whether we'll be able to maintain that much. Thank you.
Laura, I don't know if it would make sense to clarify between the CARS program and the residential program real quick, because there will be more upcoming sessions, right?
Absolutely. So the resolution that's before you tonight is only for CARS eligible streets. So those are not would not ever be the streets interior to Apollo Gardens or not any of our residential streets throughout the community. Those are going to be our main arterial or collector streets that are located throughout the city. So that is a funding pot and pool through the county that we are able to access on an annual basis. And then separate from that, we started discussions back in April about the updated pavement condition index and inventory, looking at how the work that we've done over the last nearly 15 years now in our residential streets has impacted PCI ratings, whether we need to make any adjustments, and then looking forward for the balance of this period where the street sales tax is still current, which will be through March of 2032. So we would need to look at potential renewal of that in 2031. But we're in the process, and as we move through this budget year, we'll be really looking at how we're addressing streets and where those might fall. But the streets in Apollo Gardens would be considered under our residential street program and not under our CARS street program.
And so just for the benefit of everyone, there will be budget notices and identification of streets related work sessions and other opportunities to discuss that residential street program.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, Wanda?
I understand what you just said. However, it occurs to me that that street, 51st, that the water, I mean, that's a very steep hill. And what is the stormwater plan that, because it seems to me that if we could do something with that 51st, that would impact Apollo Gardens. Because I'm not sure that that water is coming and going into a drain. And it may be, I don't know. I'm expressing my ignorance, but
So the section in this CARS resolution is not the section of 51st Street that fronts Apollo Gardens. It is from Lamar to the east city limits.
Yeah.
So right now, 51st Street, as it stands, does not generate enough traffic volume so 51st Street from Lamar to the west does not generate enough traffic to be considered CARS eligible. So we have to factor that into our residential street program as well.
what about the stormwater? It doesn't fit either?
Well, we will address some stormwater. Apollo Garden has stormwater issues related to the streets, as do most of our residential streets, because we never put stormwater infrastructure in residential areas. But they also have some other, I think, as Ms. Thompson references, stormwater issues, and that we've looked at in the past is as part of our sort of neighborhood level stormwater projects. And I think they're sort of next on the list, but we're evaluating and been looking at how do we impact, or what impact do the streets, or should the streets play as a part of that as well.
Yeah. I guess my question to clarify is that does 51st West, do they have stormwater drains in that? Oh, it does?
Yeah, I was going to say the head nodding behind me knows much better than you.
He's nodding
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
For those who
okay.
can't see the head nodding, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is a good point that some of our streets that we might think of as larger arterials, et cetera, may not qualify for cars. And that my understanding that's largely driven by the traffic counts, right? And so we have from time to time reassessed some of our streets to see if they will now qualify. Yeah. Yeah, Ben?
Just hearing talk about, threat to structures and things like that. Is that anything that might engage with SMAC or whatever SMAC turned into in any way, or is that below the level of feasibility for county assistance? Or at least, let's put it this way, is it on the radar, or reasonable to ask that we think about that?
I'm assuming the head is nodding behind me. Yes, that it's on the radar. Yes.
I see no head nodding.
The question is asking if there are structural impacts, stormwater that is impacting a structure. I mean, the challenge is as a buyout, right? And
Okay.
which becomes a little bit more challenging probably in a townhome community than at a single family property. So we haven't explored that with respect to that project.
Okay.
Yeah, Debbie?
If it's that or nothing, I'd rather at least know what the options are.
Yep.
Can I
Debbie?
ask, does your HOA have anything to do with your structural development and what the entire project looks like? Is that taken into account?
I don't quite understand what you mean.
You have an HOA
Yes.
through Apollo Gardens.
Yes.
And there are certain stipulations. It talks about your landscaping. It talks about what can be done. Is there anything in the language or in the covenant that shares anything relative to concerns of degradation or things of that nature? Okay.
We encourage people to water their front yards, what they do on their patio is their own choice. But we're on a hill.
Yeah.
Water runs down.
And I do think we're getting pretty far afield of our subject item that is up in front of us. So do we have any more questions or comments related to the CARS program? Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, I'm just a chatterbox, sorry. 51st Street in particular, looking to the east toward the city limits. I recall hearing that I think Roland Park is doing some work on 51st Street that I think they're including like an 8-foot path or sidewalk on the south side. Is that not right?
Yeah.
Right, but that's going to come up to the work we're doing, so it might behoove us to just look at that and make sure we're apprised of what they're doing, and if there's any opportunities for us to integrate with, that infrastructure that they're putting in. Just heard that at the
Yeah.
e-mobility summit the other day, so I thought it was interesting with that item on our long-term cars plan.
All right. Any final comments or questions related to the CARS program? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Pring,
Aye.
Carpenter Davis,
Aye.
Camosa,
Aye.
Josie,
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
Schmid,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. All right, we do not have any unfinished business tonight, therefore we will move into our new business. We do have 2 items of new business tonight. The first is for consideration of a reimbursement agreement for relocation of gas facilities for the Rock Creek Channel Improvements Project from Woodson to Maple. Mr. Morton, will you please make your presentation?
Yep, thank you very much. So like the mayor just said, this is a reimbursement request to move gas facilities for the Rock Creek project. Usually any facilities located in the right of way, we have an agreement in place where they have to relocate those facilities at the utilities cost. There's a lot of old infrastructure in town and some of the stuff was in rear easements or dedicated utility easements, Evergy, gas, stuff like that. So when that comes into play, it's usually along creek channels or in rear easements, and we are asking for them to relocate those facilities. That cost is kicked back to us for those relocation costs. So the estimated cost to relocate the gas facilities in need to build the Rock Creek Channel project is estimated $109,000. That's installing approximately 240 feet of 2-inch polyethylene distribution main, installing 6 new service lines, retirement of approximately 480 feet of 2-inch I can't say that word. Retirement of 70 feet of 4-inch bare steel main, and the retirement of 6 services. And it's been ongoing probably for the last 5 years, but they are really pushing hard to get their gas mains, and water's doing the same thing, out of the rear easements and into the right of way. So future improvements, if we needed to move that again for something else, or we're adding sidewalk or anything like that, those relocations wouldn't be our cost, it'd be on theirs. So there is a high cost, but it benefits, I think, both of us. So the Rock Creek Channel reduces flood risk, stabilizes the creek banks. We've had two to three failures along this corridor since I've been Public Works Superintendent. So we're really enhancing it, more green space, and really improving that trail. So staff is recommending approval for agreement with Kansas Gas for an estimated amount of $109,835.90 to relocate the existing gas facilities that are in conflict with the Rock Creek project right now. Be happy to answer any questions.
Right. Any questions for Brent? Any? Yeah, there's no way out of paying this amount of money, right?
No, I've tried. So, I mean, I've only brought 2 of these to council for actually spending money on utility relocation, and it's always been this scenario. And I don't even bring it up. We reach out to them for the utility relocation, and then usually 6 months down the road, I get the email that says this is going to cost us money because they're going through their process. So I don't offer it up. It comes to me.
And do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Any further council discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the city council approve a reimbursement agreement with Kansas Gas Service in the estimated amount of $109,835.90 for the relocation of existing gas facilities associated with Rock Creek Channel Improvements Project between Woodson and Maple Street.
Second. Motion, a second. Any final comments? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Mosa.
Aye.
Schmid.
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Pring.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you, Brent. Our second item of new business tonight is for consideration of an easement with Kansas Gas Service on city-owned lot 5908 Outlook for the Rock Creek Channel improvements. Do you have an update on this item?
Yes. So as with what we just talked about for the relocation, we're bringing a lot of gas services and mains out of the rear easement where gas has a dedicated easement for those. To move those to the right of way and make necessary the space for the actual construction and placement of Rock Creek Channel. They need a easement at 5908 Outlook dedicated for the new gas main. We worked with gas on this best placement. It's far away from the creek channel. You still got a lot of site there you could develop if you needed to. So that's really the only place we could allow them to go without crossing the creek channel. We've removed 2 so far with the failures out of the creek channel with those projects that were quick fixes. So the gas main now is running really close to the creek channel, which is in conflict. So the goal is only to move it once and not put it back to where we could be digging again. So this is just part of that agreement to get all this gas mains and services relocated for this project. There's no cost associated with this. It's just giving them the access where they need to connect to these new services in the main to get the services to the business and the apartments.
Okay. And I know we do have a technical description of sort of where on this lot falls, and you just said you tried to minimize the impacts. Can you kind of describe where it is?
So it's 5908, and it's one of those parcels furthest to the north towards Johnson Drive on Outlook. That's basically green space right now. So it basically starts at the business that's there now to the south 15 feet. So we're
Okay.
trying to leave as much of that green space accessible with not putting one right down the middle of it. And then it runs over to like the service kind of cuts over to, it's so fluffy fresh. And then I forget what the business is on the corner, but that corridor is so tight through there where we're getting the trail through and the channel. There's really not a lot of options other than putting it here to get those businesses gas service.
Any other questions for Brent? Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, so we don't have that exhibit A with the drawing or the legal description, so are we comfortable moving forward with approving that? It's not in the packet.
Thought my computer was just dying, but I thought we did have the legal description attached in the packet. Is that not correct? Maybe it's not the picture.
I mean, what I have is tract of land 15 feet wide, blah, blah, blah. Identified and more particularly defined on exhibit A attached here too, which is, I don't have that. I trust you. I just don't.
I thought I attached it. So
I don't feel like giving away city land on spoken word.
Are we missing that exhibit?
I mean,
Yes.
push comes to shove, there's not too many places on this parcel I wouldn't give them a 15-foot strip of land. So, we can move forward, I think, but.
Is there any question or concern about a deficiency with not having the drawing and voting on this item?
I can assure you that I won't sign the easement document without the drawing exhibit attached to it, if that is enough of an assurance, or we have a special city council meeting. Although, did you sign the notices for next week? Okay. That's all right. If you're comfortable with that, I'm just looking at the easement document. It's over my signature, and we'll make sure before I sign it and we record it, and we have a map, and I can provide that back out to the council.
I mean, yeah, providing that and that you could put, again, a 15-foot strip anywhere on this parcel diagonally, I wouldn't really care. So
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
East to west on that.
Yeah, perfect.
Any other questions? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the city council approve a gas service easement granting Kansas Gas Service a 15-foot service easement on the city-owned property located at 5908 Outlook Street, necessary to support utility adjustments for the Rock Creek Channel Improvements Project.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Robin, please call the roll.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Pring,
Aye.
Hayden Chomposi,
Aye.
Josie,
Aye.
Mosa,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we will now move into comments from the city council. This is an opportunity for comments from our council members. Does anyone on the council have something they'd like to share this month? Yeah, Debbie, and then Brian, then Cheryl.
In the past, in several years, we have acknowledged people who have really gone above and beyond on their yards. The landscaping, the flowers, shrubbery, everything is not only in coherence with what we do, but I mean, they just stand out. I would like to go back to that over the summer months and maybe look at you know, in each ward, the house that puts together something that makes the city look better, if that's possible. We did it for years, but haven't done it for a while.
Let's see, I saw Brian next, then Cheryl, then Ben.
Thought you were going to recognize me for the new trees I planted.
Oh.
No.
Good.
Yeah, so I did want to recognize the Music Box Symphony in the Park. I know we all were kind of chatting about it, but I went out to that with my wife Lauren on Saturday, Sunday. Really a lot of fun. I know we got a much larger crowd than expected. I think about 500 people, a little over 500, which is super cool. And even though it was windy, and even though I know they said they didn't have quite the speaker setup they wanted, I mean, I heard it pretty well. More speakers would be great, but I thought it was a lot of fun. And if we can get that more often, I think that'd be great. Second comment, I did what I usually do during the citywide garage sale and scooted around to as many as I could. And feedback from the folks who had, you know, their garages set up was really very positive. Good traffic. Some comments or requests that I've already forwarded to staff, so I don't need to go over those again here in detail. But yeah, overall, very complimentary of the new signage that we put out, and we're happy with the turnout.
Cheryl?
I echo that about the symphony. It was just wonderful. It was great weather, good planning, Penn. The other thing I just want to say, a shout out to the police and public works. We've had a lot of graduation ceremonies this week and a lot of houses having huge graduation. And there's been great signage and everything, and working with the citizens to make sure that we're creating safety and also access for police and fire in case of an emergency. So thanks for everyone working on that.
Ben?
Well, third time's the charm. I just, the music box at the park really, not to cover too much territory we've already covered, but it really is an incredible amenity that the symphony provides, and that we're able to coordinate with the symphony. Yeah, I don't think we could say enough good things about that in terms of something we offer to the community and the way in which we did it, and the way in which it highlighted our park and the investments we've made in it. It just makes for a great place to gather and have that kind of thing. I want to thank staff and our municipal advisor for doing the homework it's pretty wonky, I admit, on the TIF amendment. I appreciate that. I think it really gave me the answers that I felt like I needed to at least cover sort of my responsibility to my constituents and their other taxing jurisdictions. Two more things. To Director Almany of Parks and Rec, I apologize. I only just saw your email that where you were offering to try and clarify some questions I had about the software that we passed tonight. You did a great job putting that in the agenda or in the packet, so thank you for that. You were correct. I was wrapped up in Mother's Day weekend planning, so when you anticipated that, you were 100% correct. I didn't see that email until today, so apologies. And on that note, from watching you look through your packet for the legal description, I know that you're probably looking at how that didn't get into the packet, but I do feel like I should also say I probably should have read my packet more closely and found that earlier. So,
Yeah, Wanda?
Yeah, I just want to say again that Hy-Vee had another breakfast for veterans this morning, and they really are quite a good business in our area. We should do something to honor that. I mean, not all of the businesses do that, but Hy-Vee really does go above and beyond.
That's good now. I was also going to take a point of privilege to say congratulations to Councilmember Ryherd and her family, to Lee and Iris, on new baby Reed. And so if you were wondering where she was at tonight, we have another Mission resident in our community. So, all right, we will now move into our Councilmember Committee liaison reports. These reports allow the entire governing body to stay up to date with the various activities of our boards, commissions, and committees. First is Councilmembers Hayden Champosi and Chosi for the Sustainability Commission.
go for it.
Excellent. So the Sustainability Commission has wrapped up their strategic planning session just in time to come and talk to us, I believe, next month, June 3rd, about what they're doing and what they would like to continue to do in the way of partnering with us to continue their work with the city. Their last meeting mostly was a discussion of the building code updates that we have all been talking about also for quite some time. There was a continued concern around communities for all ages and how we will make sure that we uphold the codes around ADA items, universal design, and et cetera. There was also a bit of a discussion about, I don't know, a bill that is currently paused. And so I think they're going to keep us posted. It's HB 939. And I believe they'll keep us posted as there's more information on those things. And I think that was it. Yes, I think that's it.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight specifically, since they called it out with enthusiasm, as to the building codes, very, just in general about the IECC, the Energy Conservation Code, very optimistic, very positive, very glad that we're going there at all. So a lot of good things to say about that. There was a specific ask to look into, is there a universal design appendix to the IBC? Somebody thought there might be. We've talked about universal design and how it impacts CFAA before. But yeah, good idea just to look into that. And, generally boo to SB 418 and how it keeps them from going further with their goals. So,
Debbie?
Not to add anything, but I wanted to let you know that we used to have what's called an energy efficiency block grant, which was put out nationally. And I had a conference call 2 weeks ago with the Energy Environment Committee of the National League of Cities, and that grant may be put back into view again. So if it is, I'll find out the information and get it to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry. Next, we have council members Camosa and Carpenter Davis for Parks, Recreation, and Tree Commission.
Yeah, the Parks, Recreation, and Tree Commission met at Mohawk Park on Monday, May 11th. Typically in the warmer months, the commission will try and host meetings at the parks. Mohawk was picked for May and June because commissioners discussed their annual tree ID initiative, where about 5 to 10 trees are selected at parks around the city, where they're kind of spruced up with an identification plaque listing the species, a photo, and various fun facts for patrons. Mohawk, I learned, was home to over 100 trees, if you can believe it. As I said, that's kind of in the works over the summer. Commissioners also reviewed the newest summer adventure guide, which residents should have gotten out the last couple of weeks. I would point out to that with an eye on sustainability, the guide was reduced. The guide reduced the amount of paper that was used by about half, incorporated a lot more of the data into QR codes. So that actually freed up some savings to allow us to ship it out to residents rather than, I think one of the adventure guides last year was pickup only. And then additionally, much like sustainability, the chair, Nicole Sullivan, will be here at the June Community Development Committee meeting to give a presentation. Cheryl, did I miss anything?
No, just great weather for that meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, that concludes our report.
All right, so next we'll hear an update from Councilmember Kring on Mission Magazine Editorial Board.
Yes, we met here in City Hall, pardon me, on Tuesday, May 12th at noon, and discussed the next iteration of the magazine and what the cover might look like, with all the things coming together between FIFA and our 75th anniversary, and kind of a culmination of all those things going on at the same time. But had some great input from the people around the table about legacy and the people that we've had here, starting with Frank Bruce and his family continue to stay here. And it's interesting to find out how many links we have in this community to a wider scale on the regional level. So I think we've got some real good ideas, and Laura's really putting things together, and we're fortunate that we'll get that done. Thanks.
All right, and finally, we have Councilmember Schmidt and Bond for Family Adoption Committee.
The Family Adoption Committee has not met since last council meeting, thus I have no update.
Great. Let's see, next, our city administrator's report. Ms. Smith, do you have any additional items to share for council tonight?
I believe we don't have any business updates this evening or none that anybody wants to stay awake for. The same for, you have your April interim financial reports, but things are trending in the right direction. You're going to spend a lot of time with us on budget in the next few weeks. So I just wanted to remind folks of a couple of upcoming dates. So next week, May 27th, we have a special meeting at 6 o'clock. And that will be 2 items on that agenda. There will be the award of the Johnson Drive construction contract and award of the Johnson Drive construction inspection contract. So we have been through the bid process. We have submitted all of the appropriate documents to KDOT, and we have been given the authority to award. And so Public Works is anxious to get that moving as quickly as possible. So those will be the items on your special agenda. And then we have a work session scheduled for Parks and Recreation immediately following that meeting, that special meeting. One of the things similar to what we did on streets, we're trying to break down, and because we have a lot of decisions, and coming out of our retreat on May 2nd, we realized that we have even a lot more conversation that probably needs to happen at the council level about where your Parks and Recreation priorities are across all of the areas as we move into the budget. So that will be kind of our area of focus next week at the work session. Then on June 3rd, we will have a special meeting at 6 o'clock. There will be 3 agenda items on that meeting. Continuation of the public hearing for the Encore project, the ordinance that was tabled to June 3rd to adopt the TIF redevelopment project plan, and the development agreement related to the Encore, and then also a resolution of an intent to issue IRBs for the sales tax exemption for the project, which is something that is included as a commitment in the development agreement. So that item, this would actually be an amendment to one that was previously approved. So those will be the 3 items on your special agenda. And then we will have our regular committee meetings on June 3rd. We are off track on the budget calendar, so I am working on trying to get us back on track, and we'll be circulating that information as soon as I can get all of those pieces worked in based around other meetings and you all schedules.
Next, we do not have a need for an executive session tonight. So before we adjourn tonight, I just want to share with the public that the video from this meeting will be available through a link on our website at missionks.org. There being no further business tonight, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor and say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.